Good evening and welcome to Torah is for Everyone. Welcome Baruch Benjamin Schulman and Miriam Birnbaum. I'm finally starting to see a little bit of light after, I would say, a week, 2 weeks of weeping, absolutely weeping for what's happening in Israel. I don't remember crying so much, and just my heart was breaking. You know, I haven't felt that. I don't know if I've ever felt that in my life. I might have felt it for my own pain, but not for the pain of others. And every emotion has gone through me, from anger to wanting vengeance, even though I know God says vengeance is mine. But I do know when we read the Torah, the answers are there. And
Peggy, I don't know why you're freezing. Is that?
It's you. You're freezing. Because
I'm not freezing.
Yeah, you were the only one freezing because Brian was okay, and so was I. Anyway, I think, is it all right now?
Okay.
It's okay now? Yeah, it could be your Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of answers in our Torah for what's happening in the world. And even though I think this is probably the 35th year that I'm reading Noah, and because we go through the Torah every year. And so let's read it again. I pray that we could read this with fresh eyes. If there's anything you see, Miriam, that speaks to you in any way, don't be shy, interrupt, because we all have, God reveals to each of us what is written in his word. And again, I say he didn't reveal it only to scholars and to PhDs and to rabbis and pastors, but he revealed it. Moses wrote it at the time when the only people who were there to hear the word of God, to hear the voice of God, had been recent slaves from Egypt. Very simple people. And that's us. And that's how I like to look at the Torah, from a very simple perspective. I remember our rabbi saying that he didn't take the Torah as being literal. He didn't take the Torah as being historical. As a matter of fact, what he said was that rather than looking at the Torah literally or historically, because we can't prove what happened 4,000 years ago. There's no way. Good evening, Jerry. Nice to see you.
Hi, Jerry.
So I was just doing a little introduction, Jerry, about how the Torah doesn't need to be taken literally. These are narratives. These are stories that hold principles that are timeless. And these principles help us to understand exactly what's happening in the world today. I love the story of Noah, like I love every of the other stories. But this Noah has one word that when I first saw it, I was just like so shocked. So let's begin I'm going to share the screen so that we can read it. And I'm going to share the version of Sefaria. Last time we got stuck, so I'm also prepared to read it in the other version that I use. But what I'd like to do is go back a little bit, because it's always good to see things in context. So we go back to Genesis, where it says, humankind began to increase on earth, and daughters were born to humans. And it says here, the males among divine being, I think they were called the Nephilim. There are, some say, sons of God. And who are sons of God? Us. We are children of God, created by God. So we're all sons of God. It's not necessarily, that's one interpretation, is divine beings. So these men who were Nephilim, who were very powerful leaders, saw how pleasing women were, and who took wives from among them, from among those who delighted them. Now, let me just see here. Mikol Asher, okay. Hina ikhu lechem nashim. See, it doesn't say necessarily human women, just women, nashim. Okay. Then he goes on, my breath shall not abide. They say the meaning is not uncertain, but we know that breath is ruach, and the ruach of God is his spirit, shall not abide and not live in humankind forever. Up to then, it had, I guess, people had lived for many hundred years, but now he was going to change it. It says, let the days allow them to be 120 years. It was then and later too that the Nephilim, these great, strong giants of men, like we read with Goliath, appeared on earth. When, again, it says divine beings, but sons of God are also translated as divine beings. So it could be just these godlike, strong human beings cohabitated with women who bore them offspring. Such were the heroes of old, men of renown. So this is the background of what we're going to read in Noah. And Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh saw how great was human wickedness on earth, how every plan devised by the human mind was nothing but evil all the time. I have no idea how this transpired, how suddenly all this evil was on the earth, but it was. And then it says, and Lord, Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, it says regretted, but it's more like he thought again. He reconsidered, having made, pardon? Having made humans on earth. With a sorrowful heart, the Lord said, I will blot out from the earth the humans whom I created, together with beasts, creeping things, birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I made them. You know, sometimes we wonder if when we see our children going so wrong, so off track, we almost regret having given birth to them. Thank God I haven't gotten that far yet. But our whole human race had become like that. And then it says, which is where we're going to begin, but Noach found favor with God. And we begin our parsha. This is the lineage of Noah. It says he was a righteous man. He was blameless in his age, and Noah walked with God. Now, some of our rabbis say that if he had lived at the time of Abraham, he wouldn't have been so important. But here, because everybody was so evil in comparison to them, he was considered righteous. But how do we know that that's the truth? It says Noah walked with God. To me, that says everything about him. His heart was wholehearted with our God, and may we all walk with God.
Why would, like when you say the word righteous, was that tzaddik or tzaddikim? No?
Yeah, actually it is tzaddik. He was a righteous man, but it also says tamim. Tamim, in Hebrew, ishtam means a man who is without guile.
Okay.
He had an innocence about him.
To me, like, I mean, I don't know, but it doesn't seem, to me, it seems very apparent that it's not so flexible. And he walked with God. I think even though the times were different, I think there are certain things that are unchanging in all of the human history. And I don't think you can say a righteous man who walked with God, and it means, like that film. I think you liked it, but I didn't like it. The film, the latest film made on Noah.
Right.
I found that's just too.
Well, it was based a lot on the Midrashim, more than the Torah.
Well, whatever it was, I don't agree with the idea that when something said with the Bible, the Torah says righteous, of course the times change, but I think righteous and walking with God pretty much means that. It may not look exactly the way it looks in different periods of time, but I think it's a man.
Yeah, he was a man of justice. He was a man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
he knew
doesn't mean
right
he was
from wrong.
doesn't mean he was perfect. And
No,
we
but it never means it never means.
exactly. But in his own age, in comparison, especially in comparison, he was it says he was blameless. You know, God, it doesn't mean he didn't make mistakes, but if you walk with God, it means that you are always seeking to do the right thing. Even when you don't do the right thing, you feel bad about it, and then you turn around and you make it right. And we all do that.
Yeah.
Those who truly are wholehearted for God. So Noah had 3 sons: Shem, from whom the Semites come, Ham, and anybody could find the genealogies of these, and Japheth. Japheth, they say, are the European nations. Ham became the Canaanites later on. It says the earth became corrupt, not just the people. God created the earth, the whole earth, and it became corrupt before God. The earth was filled with lawlessness. And I don't like this word lawlessness, although it's part of it, but in other translation, it says Hamas. And you see here, Haaretz, Hamas. Hamas, we see today with the it's no surprise that the terrorists that we see in this part of in the Middle East creating such havoc amongst our people, amongst God's people, are called Hamas. When God saw how corrupt the earth was, because all flesh had corrupted its way on earth, God said to Noah, I have decided to put an end to all flesh, for the earth is filled with lawlessness. I wonder, I didn't read it. Ki mala, which means filled, haaretz, Hamas, with violence. The earth is filled with violence. I'm about to destroy them with the earth. So if God told Noah that he was going to wipe out everybody because of Hamas, imagine today with Hamas doing what they're doing. Everybody's screaming, look what Israel is doing to these people. Well, let them go, and their fight is with the God of Israel, because it's God who's destroying people. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. So here we see the word teva for the first time. We'll see teva again when Moses is put into an ark. And she also covered it with pitch and inside and out. And we see at that time, pitch is like what oil comes from. And
tar, like tar.
Like tar, exactly. Covered inside, which would keep it from sinking. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, its height 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight in the ark. Finish it with a cubit on top. Put the entrance to the ark in its side. Make it with bottom, second, and third decks. For my part, I am going to bring the mabul, the flood. Waters will cover the earth to destroy all flesh under the sky, in which there is breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and this will be a covenant of peace. You shall enter the ark with your wife, your sons, your wives, and your sons' wives. And of all that lives, of all flesh, you shall take 2 of each into the ark to keep alive with you. They shall be male and female. So God is giving Noah very specific directives to bring animals of every kind, birds, cattle, every creeping thing. 2 of each shall come to you in order to stay alive. Now the 2 of each are male and female. because if he brought two males or he brought two females, the way people think is normal today, there would be no reproduction. It's just basic common sense. For your part, take of everything that is eaten and store it away to serve as food for you and for them. Noah did just as God commanded him, so he did. Now, just in that one line, Noah did just as God commanded him. How many of us can say that? Now, remember, Noah he was living in a level where there was no ocean. He was up on a mountain. Where was it? I can't remember right now. It had never rained on earth. The water would come from under. I think we read that last week. The water would come as dew on the ground. So here, Noah trusted God. We don't read much about his life and what led to that and why he trusted him, but he trusted him enough to build an ark, to allow all the animals to come, to gather all this food without even be showing that this would happen. He trusted God to do that. That to me is absolutely incredible. Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark with all your household, for you alone have I found tzaddik before me in this generation. Didn't even say that about his wife or his kids, just about Noah. It just shows me that one tzaddik person, one person who is strong enough in his trust will influence other people, hopefully our families, because he wasn't able to do that with the entire generation that he lived with. They must have come to ask him, what are you doing? How come you're building an ark up here? What's going on? But nobody got on the ark except Noah. And I guess also, it's impossible to know what happened or why it happened. There are all kinds of conjectures, like you were saying, Miriam, about that a second version, Noah, the latest version, talked about how Tubal Cain managed to get on board and that he was the one who brought evil. But it doesn't say that in the Torah.
Yeah.
Of every pure animal you shall take 7 pairs, not just 2. These will be 7, an extra 7 pairs, male and their mates. Again, pairs. Of every animal that is not pure, you shall take 2, a male and its mate. So the pure animals, again, to me, this is a chukim. We don't know why some animals were considered pure and some were not pure. But the way our rabbi explained it was that these animals, for whatever reason God chose, was that they would be able to be presented to him as offerings. They would have to eat. So some animals would be offered so that they could eat, and others would not be able to be offered, and they would just live on earth and multiply. Of all the birds of the sky also 7 pairs, male and female, to keep seed alive. Their generations also needed to procreate on the earth. For in 7 days' time, so he knew when it was coming, I will make it rain upon the earth for 40 days, 40 nights, a month and a half, and I will blot out from the earth all existence that I have created. God doesn't certainly seem very humane to us, but he knew what he was doing. And Noah did just as the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came and waters were on the earth. Noah, his wife, his sons' wives went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. This was also changed in that second movie, the later movie of Noah. Of the pure animals, of the animals that are not pure, of the birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 of each, male and female, came to Noah into the ark, as God had commanded Noah. This is always amazing to me, and I think I repeat this every year, how the animals themselves had the call to come to Noah. He didn't go out and get them.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. God called these animals.
Well, when they were originally created, well, I believe before the great fall, although this had already happened, the animals in the Garden of Eden ate grass and herbal stuff. So I don't think there was killing at that time. But
Right.
maybe so.
And
I don't think now.
And God
unless
certainly could communicate with them, because I mean, even if we look at last week when in Genesis, we read about the snake, the Nachash, who spoke to Eve.
Right.
So in the garden, maybe some of the animals did speak. I don't know. And the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they did. And on the 7th day, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst apart, and the floodgates of the sky broke open. The rain fell on the earth a month and a half, 40 days and 40 nights. That was the same amount of time that Moses went up on the mountain. It was the same amount of time that Yeshua was in the desert.
Yeah, 40 is such a, and we were just talking about 40 before.
Yeah, and we'll see it soon. Exactly. A generation in the scriptures is 40 years. That same day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, went into the ark with Noah, Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons. They and all the beasts of every kind, all the cattle of every kind, all the creatures of every kind that creeps on the earth. They had loads of spiders and all kinds of fun things. All the birds, every winged creature. They came to Noah into the ark, 2 each of all flesh, in which there was Ruach HaChaim, the breath of life. And we all have that, the breath of life that only God could give us. So they that entered comprised male and female of all flesh, as God had commanded him. And Yud-He, Vav-He, shut him in. In other words, it was God who sealed that door. The flood continued 40 days on the earth, and the waters increased and raised the ark so that it rose above the earth. The waters swelled and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark drifted upon the waters. When the waters had swelled much more upon the earth, all the highest mountains everywhere under the sky were covered. Now, some people say it's only on that part, but here it says everywhere. The whole earth was covered. I think the way it was here was then I remember learning this at one point, was that all the land masses were connected. It was later that they were divided so that there were islands and seas, but at one point, all the land masses were connected with each other. 15 cubits higher did the water swell as the mountains were covered, and all flesh that stirred on earth perished. Even the birds, the cattle, the beasts, everything that swarmed upon the earth, along with all humankind. Everyone, anything, in whose nostrils was the merest breath of life. All that was on the dry land died. In other words, the fish did not die. They were not corrupted. The oceans were still clean and clear, not like they are today. All existence on earth was blotted out. Humans, cattle, creeping things, and the birds of the sky, they were blotted out from earth. Look how he repeats the same message to us. He wants us to get the consequences of violence, of sin, of sinat chinam, hatred, free hatred. Only Noah was left. Sometimes we wonder why there's just so few who are truly wholehearted for God, even among the so-called religious. Right throughout scriptures, we always see it was a very small remnant of people who were willing to be wholehearted for God, and those with him in the ark. And when the water had swelled on the earth 150 days, God remembered Noah. It's not like he forgot him, but now he turned his eyes, his focus again to Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were in him in the ark, with him in the ark. And God caused again the word ruach, his wind, to blow across the earth. Oh, excuse me. And the waters subsided. The fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were stopped up, and the rain from the sky was held back. The waters then receded steadily from the earth. At one end, 150 days, at the end of 150 days, the waters diminished. So that was a little less than half a year, because we have 365 days in a year. So here, 150 days, the waters diminished. So that in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountain of Ararat, which is today in Armenia. That's why they say that it's the Armenian ark. The waters went on diminishing until the 10th month. And in the 10th month, on the 1st of the month, the top of the mountains became visible. And the 10th month, we celebrate our high holidays in the 10th month. At
Yeah,
the
I
end,
was just going to say that.
yeah, the ones we just
So
finished.
God must have, I don't know, perhaps given these dates to Moses later when he write it down.
Yes. Yeah. There's no accidents. He planned everything. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made and sent out a raven. It went back and forth until the waters had dried up from the earth. I think it came back. It went to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. So it was going back and forth. Then he sent out the dove to see whether the waters had decreased from the surface of the ground. But the dove could not find a resting place for its foot and returned to the ark, for there was water still all over the earth. So putting out his hand, he took it into the ark with him. He waited another 7 days and again sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came back to him toward evening, and there in its bill was a plucked off olive leaf. And this picture of a dove with an olive leaf we see it everywhere where there's this feeling of hope, of peace, of shalom. Then Noah knew that the waters had decreased from the earth. He waited still another 7 days and set the dove forward, and it did not return to him anymore. We still use doves to send messages. That was always used all through the ages when there was no telegraph or no social media. Doves were sent out with a message. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st of the month, this is Pesach,
Right.
the waters began to dry from the earth. And when Noah removed the covering of the ark, he saw that the surface of the ground was drying. In the 2nd month, he had to wait another month. On the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. And God spoke to Noah, saying, "Come out of the ark, together with your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and animals, everything that creeps on earth, and let them swarm on the earth and be fertile and increase on the earth." So Noah came out together with his sons, his wives, his sons' wives, with every animal, every creeping thing, every bird, everything that stirs on earth, came out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to God, and taking of every pure animal and of every pure bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. For whatever reasons, these animals were acceptable to be offered to God. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, and the Lord resolved, he made a vow, never again will I doom the earth, or will I destroy the earth because of mankind, because of the devising of the human mind are evil from youth. Right from the beginning, we have a choice of doing the wrong things. That's usually the first thing we do. That's why we have to learn. That's why we need to be disciplined. That's why we need to learn how to control our nature. Nor will I ever again destroy every living being as I have done. So long as the earth endures, at times of seed and harvest, cold and hot, summer and winter, day or night, shall not cease. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you shall be upon all the beasts of the earth and upon all the beasts of the sky." So birds of the sky, everything with which the earth is astir, and upon all the fish of the sea, they are given into your hands. And you see people today who love animals, who want to take care of animals and the beasts, and they're not afraid of the animals because of this. Believe it or not, this is within us. The fear and dread of you shall be upon all the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky and the fish of the sea, because we have been given them to take care of them. And right now we're doing a pretty rotten job.
I'm watching a man just playing with a tiger and a lion, and I was thinking of this too. You know, like how joyfully he was playing with them, hugging them, and playing with them.
Right. It would be good if you put your picture on, Miriam, just so when you speak, we're not listening to a black box.
I feel like a black box.
That's all right, but you don't look like a black box. Every creature that lives shall be yours to eat. You see this? Every creature that lives
right.
shall be yours to eat. It has nothing to do with the offerings to God. God chose certain animals to be offered that were acceptable to him. We don't know why. We can
also,
make
you're saying this has nothing to do with what we're allowed to eat or what we're not allowed.
Exactly. This is what it's saying here. With the green grasses, I give you all these. You must, however, not eat flesh with its life blood in it. Don't eat it raw. It must be well cooked, no blood in it. For your own life blood, I will require a reckoning. I will require it of every beast of humankind. Will I require a reckoning for human life, every one for each other. You see, if you look at many of these pagan religions, what they would do, they would drink the blood, thinking it gave them strength. Only God gives us strength. They would take out a living heart of an animal or even a human and eat it, thinking it was giving them strength. Only God gives us strength. Whoever sheds human blood, by human hands shall that one's blood be shed. For in the image of God was humankind made. So when we think that it's okay to take a life, whether it's our own or an unborn child or anybody else, in a way that's vengeful, revenge, it shall be. Oh, what happened here? Hold on, sorry about that. This is the ring of truth. Whoever sheds human blood by human hands shall that one's blood be shed. So right here, God is saying that if you murder someone, you deserve to be murdered in the same way. You need to be killed. God was setting down rules for mankind so that we do not commit premeditated murder. It's not the same as defending yourself or fighting against an enemy who is trying to attack you. Remember, our army that we'll read a lot later on, the IDF that we see now, does not go to attack. It's the defense force. We are not an offensive force. We are defensive force. That's very different. Be fertile then and increase. Abound on the earth and increase on it. In other words, you need male and female for this. The only way to increase the earth, to be fertile, is male and female. And God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant, et briti, with you and your offsprings to come, and with every living beast, every living thing that is with you, birds, cattle, every wild beast as well, all that have come out of the ark, every living thing on earth. I will maintain my covenant with you, and this is his covenant. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. That was God's promise to Noah. So we never have to worry. And because he gave us signs, God said, this is the sign. Where is it? Zot ot habrit. This is the covenant, the sign of the brit, of the covenant between me and you, every living creature with you for all ages to come. And what is the sign? His rainbow that he sets in the clouds. It shall serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And every time we see a rainbow, it's such a sense of hope. It's such a beautiful sign for us. Everybody is awed by this sign. And the interesting thing is, if you look at the rainbow from above the earth, it's not an arc, it's a circle. Mm. When I bring the clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you. Does he need to remember? It's for us. And every living creature among all flesh, so that the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. Sorry?
Even clover was in the covenant. It's all living creatures.
All living creatures, even your rabbit. And when the rainbow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures, all flesh that is on earth. You can see how he's treating us like children. How many times does he say the same thing over and over and over again, repeating it just like to our kids? Because we're like children.
Yeah.
That, God said to Noah, shall be the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on earth. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham being the father of Canaan, which was the land that God would give us. And he had a reason for that. These three were the sons of Noah. And from these, the entire world branched out. In other words, every single human being on this planet comes from Noah and his three sons and their wives. That's it. We are all cousins. We are all related. We are our brother's keepers. Now, the next thing here shows us that how human Noah was. He just spent a year on a boat. Probably they're all scared to death. It says Noah, who was a tiller of soil, was the first thing he did was to plant a vineyard. He didn't plant onions or romaine lettuce. He planted a vineyard and he became drunk. He's so funny. And he uncovered himself within his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his two brothers outside. But it says Shem and Japheth took a cloth. It's almost like Ham mocked his father. And the whole idea, again, you see in the fifth commandment, honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long upon this earth. These commandments were already in God's plan for humanity, already placed within the hearts of mankind. Shem and Japheth knew, and they walked in backwards. They took a cover, a cloak, a cloth. They placed it against both their backs. Walking backward, they covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned the other way so that they did not see their father's nakedness, which is another way of saying they didn't look upon his shame. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned what his youngest son, this is how we know that Ham was the youngest. What his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan. The lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." So the Canaan, the Canaanites, who were living in the land that God was choosing for the Israelites, were a cursed race and would not be able to live in a land that would be separated for his people who were being chosen by him. And he said, "Blessed be Yud-He-Vav-He, the God of Shem." So here we're going to see that God is the one who chooses Shem to be the Semites who would be given the land that was going to be taken away from Canaan, and let Canaan be a slave to them. That nobody likes to be a slave of others, but they brought it in some way on themselves, according to this, or that's what God chose. May God increase Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem. So it means that Japheth was going to dwell under Shem. Shem would be on the top. Japheth, which our sages say, if you're going through the genealogy, are the countries of Europe. Europe doesn't want to be under Shem, and neither does Canaan. And the whole world is rebelling against the Semites, who are the children of Israel, right to this day. Noah lived after the flood 350 years. And according to our rabbis, that Abraham was 50, I think it said 52 or 58 when Noah died. So Abraham could have met Noah if they lived in the same part of the world. And all the days of Noah came to 950 years, and then he died. Now these are the lines of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now it's really interesting if people want to do a study of all these names to see who came from whom. And I remember some of them. Gomer, who came from Japheth, is Germany. Magog, Madai, Javan, Tuval, Meshech, and Tiras. Oh my goodness, I don't remember them. I wish I'd taken more time, but I've been so busy with what's going on in Israel that you have to forgive me. But some of these, Magog, we're going into the war of Gog and Magog, the countries of the north. I think Madai might have been Greece, or Javan is Greece, Tubal, I think was the northern countries, Meshech. All these are the countries that are turning against Israel and going against Israel in the war that's coming, or maybe we're in it now, the war of Gog and Magog. The descendants of Germany, of Gomer, Ashkenaz. This is where we get the Ashkenazi Jews. They come originally from Germany. Rifat and Togarma is Turkey. The descendants of Gomer are Turkey, and Turkey is just turned against Israel. It's not a surprise that Germany has turned against Israel. Not today, but the way they were in the last war. The descendants of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. Let's see what it says here. No. From these, the maritime nations branched out. By their lands, each with its language, their clans, and their nations. The descendants of Ham. These are the Ham. Remember, Ham was cursed through Canaan. Ham was not cursed. Canaan was the one that was cursed. Cush, Mizraim, we know, is Egypt, and Put. Miriam, if you remember what these were, remember you went to Bible school.
I know. I thought it was Cush. I'm not sure. Ethiopia or Libya. I'm not sure.
One of those. Anyway, yeah. The descendants of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Savta, Ramah, Sabteka. The descendants of Ra'amah, Sheba, and Dedan. You see these later and their interactions with Israel. Cush begot Nimrod, who was the first mighty figure on earth. He was a mighty hunter by the grace of God. Thus, the saying, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter by the grace of God. Look at who his kingdom were. Babylon. Babylon, which is today modern day Iraq. Erech, Akkad, Kalneh in the land of Shinar, which is Iraq. The Babylonians were the first ones to take Israel captive when God kicked us out of our own land. From that land, Assyria went forth and built Nineveh, Rehoboth Ir, Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, that is the great city. And Mitzrayim begot Ludim, the Anamim, the Habim, and the Naphtuhim, the Patruhim, the Kasluhim, and the Kaftorim, where the Philistines come from. This has nothing to do with Palestinians. There's no such people as the Palestinians. If you listen to a recording that I just heard of Golda Meir, when Golda lived in the land, all the Israelis living in the land at that time were called Palestinians. You had the Palestinian Symphony Orchestra. It wasn't the Jerusalem Times, the newspaper. It was the Palestinian Times. The Palestinians today are a made-up people from the Jordanians, from Egyptians, from the other lands of peoples who were kicked out of their lands because they were violent. And they ended up in the territory of Gaza, where they have been kept all these years and used as political pawns by their own corrupt leadership. Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Het, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archonites, etc., etc. Afterwards, the clans of Canaanites spread out. The original Canaanite territory extended from Sidon as far as Gerar near Gaza, as far as Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim near Lasha. These are the descendants of Ham, according to their clans and languages, by their lands and nations. Sons were also born to Shem, ancestors of all the descendants of Eber, which is where we get the word Ivrit. Eber means the land on the other side, the crossing over. And an older brother of Japheth. So here we know that Ham was the youngest. Here we see Shem was older brother of Japheth, which is how we know Japheth was in the middle. So we have Shem, Japheth, and Ham. The descendants of Shem were all these names. I'm not going to read them all. That's something that if you're interested, you can go ahead and do, because there's nothing written in Torah that didn't have a meaning. This part is interesting. 2 sons were born to Eber. The name of the first was Peleg, for in his day the earth was divided. So something happened at that time to divide the land masses, and so that the oceans and rivers separated the land masses, because up to them it was one huge land mass. And this is what we learn from Torah. The name of his brother was Yochanan. Okay, I'm not going to read all the names. These are the groupings of Noah's descendants according to the origins by their nations, and from these the nations branched out over the earth after the flood. Now, this is very interesting. Everyone on earth had one language and one word, the same language, the same words. Everyone spoke Hebrew at that time. That was the Lashon.
Are you sure?
Yeah, Lashon Kodesh. That was the
I didn't
holy
know that.
language.
Sorry, it was Hebrew?
It was Hebrew. That's what I learned from my rabbi, and he did a lot of study on it, so I just take it as fact. That's what our
Okay.
rabbis all say.
Okay, I'm getting it mixed up. You're not saying that in the Garden of Eden necessarily. You're saying here they spoke.
Well, God spoke Hebrew to our people. He gave us the commandments in Hebrew.
Okay.
The language of the earth at that time was Hebrew.
Okay.
And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a valley in the land of Shinar, which was around Iraq, and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them hard. Bricks served them as stone, and bitumen served them as mortar." So we see already these people were not cavemen. They had knowledge. They knew about brick, how to make brick, how to build. They were architects. Bitumen was oil. They knew there was oil in that land. We know that the Middle East is filled with oil, and it helped them to keep to make mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build a city and a tower with its top in the sky, to make a name for ourselves, or else we shall be scattered over all the earth." So what are they saying here? God just told the people, be fruitful and multiply and be scattered over all the earth. Here, these people want to build one city, reach its top, the tower with its top into the sky. I think they were called ziggurat at that time. And or else we shall be scattered over all the earth. So we're going to make a name for ourselves. Our name is going to be greater than the name of God. From the beginning, we have been making gods out of man. This was the first, you can see it, the first, after the flood already. They just finished going through it and they're doing the same thing. The Lord looked down on the city and the tower that humanity had built. And the Lord said, "If as one people with one language for all, this is how they've begun to act, then nothing that they may propose to do will be out of their reach. In other words, we have the power. When we get together, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. So let us then go down and confuse their speech, which is where we get the word Babel. The Tower of Babel means, in Hebrew, there's a play on word, bubble, bubble, bubble. So they shall not understand each other's speech. Babel also means the gate of heaven, or the gate of God. Thus the Lord scattered them from there over the face of the whole earth, because he wasn't going to allow them to get their way. God is in control. And so they stopped building the city. That's why it's called Babel, because there the Lord confounded the speech of the whole world. And from there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the earth. So you see, Ki Shem, the name was called Balal. Why did it say Babel then? Here, hang on a second. I have to look at that a little more, because here it says Balal, Yuda, Shafat, Safat, Kol Haaretz. Interesting. Okay, boy, I have so much to learn. This is the line of Shem. Shem was 100 years old when he begot Arpachshad, 2 years after the flood. After the birth of Arpachshad, Shem lived 500 years and had sons and daughters. When Arpachshad lived 35 years, he had Shelah. After the birth of Shelah, Arpachshad lives 403 years and had sons and daughters. Shelah lived 30 years and begot Ever. After the birth of Ever, Shelah lived 400 years and begot sons and daughters. When Ever lived 34 years, he begot Peleg, which is where we saw the earth was divided. Peleg lived 430 years. He begot Reu. After the birth of Reu, he lived 209 years. He begot Serug. Boy, people were living so long there, not like today. And yet today people are living so long, we don't know where to put them.
Terrible.
Okay, so we continue on. Nahor lived 29 years. He begot Terah. And Terah, we know, is the father of Abram. Nahor and Haran. Remember, Jacob had to run to Haran. Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is how the rabbis figure, by calculating all these years, is that Noah was still alive when Abram was 58. Now, this is the line of Terah. He begot Abram. He wasn't Abraham yet. Nahor and Haran. Haran begot Lot. So Lot was Abram's nephew. Haran died in the lifetime of his father in his native land, Ur of the Chaldeans. Abram and Nahor took wives for themselves. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. Their names weren't changed yet. That of Nahor was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, and the father of Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren. She had no child. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and they set out together from Ur of the Chaldeans for the land of Canaan. But when they had come as far as Haran, they settled there. So it's interesting here. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together, so Terah left with Abram, and they settled in Haran. The days of Terah came to 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. And then we're going to get next week to Lech Lecha. So let me stop this. Hi, Jer. I'm sorry if I put you to sleep, or you're listening better with your ears, with your eyes closed. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
No, I was not sleeping this time. Sometimes I could have been, but not this time.
Yes, I have a voice that puts you to sleep. My rabbi would always say that as he was giving a message and he was watching people fall asleep in the shul. He would say, I have a very calming voice. I put my people to sleep. But it's funny. We could read these over and over and over again. How many years have we read them? And it's always exciting to see something. I'm not so sure I saw something new in it, but it's like it instills in us a deeper sense of trust. That whole idea of Hamas being right here at the time of Noah. Hamas, we also saw in Psalm 27 and in Ezekiel. It's in several places in the scriptures. But these stories, again, are not necessarily to be taken literally or even historically, because we can't prove that they happened. But we can look at them and say, okay, what can we learn from this story? Is there something that you can see, Miriam, that you can learn from it? From what principle would you draw from it?
Well, one thing you had already said before about the idea of the ark, God separating those who are righteous. Righteous, I don't think means it what we sort of say in lay terms, a kind of self-righteousness. That's not righteous. It's the motives of your heart to turn to something beyond our own human leadership. It's something bigger than us, so that the ark was separated. And in some ways, even in our own lives, we're separated to a certain purpose. And God doesn't require our obedience as a strict pagan God would. Like, if you must bow down to me. When we talk about obedience, it's not like you do what I say. Obedience is in the very principle of the goodness of God, that to follow God is to me for our own good, in the sense that, would you cut yourself off from water in the desert, or from when you're tied by the umbilical cord to your mother? There's no situation of dominance or obedience for the sake of appeasing a God. So this whole thing talks about how when you're obedient to God, it's you're recognizing that He's the very breath of our soul. And it's that to me is one of the things. I'm long-winded about it, but the idea of God talking about obedience, and the idea of evil already present on the earth.
Yeah, the whole idea of obedience precludes or includes the idea of choice. Mm-hmm. God, we have a dual nature. Part of us, which the rabbis call as the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, it's more of the nature that we would want to choose to do bad, to do something that we know is wrong. The other side of our nature is to choose to do what's right. Those who choose to do with what's right more than wrong, we could call them righteous, because we're choosing to do right. When God gave us free will, it's a gift, and He gave us which again precludes the idea of responsibility. So we are responsible for our neighbors. We are responsible for the whole world, For the animals in it, he gave us dominion over everything. So with that, we have responsibility to take care of everything. Noah was wholeheartedly walking with God. He took care of the animals. God could entrust the animals with him. And it took time to build that ark, almost 100 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot of patience. It took time to gather food, enough food for all those animals. That's a lot of food. To me, Noah is a tremendous picture of trust. Trusting to do something, like he says in 7 days he was going to set the earth would be the storm clouds would open. If you heard a voice, Miriam, that said in 7 days this is going to happen, this is what you have to do, would you do it? It takes trust.
Takes trust.
It takes trust. And our walk, our journey on this planet is all about learning how to trust the Creator. Most people don't. Some will say, "Oh, I believe in God. I know He's there, but I don't agree with what He says." But then when there's consequences in their life, they're the first ones to cry out, "Why did God do this to me?" God doesn't.
I always say this, but I just think it's important when a person says, "Of course I believe in God." It's what does that really mean? You know, I mean, everyone has a right to believe what they want. All I'm saying is I don't know what that means, because God, it's like saying, I believe. Anyway, I can't think of an example, but when you believe in something, you know that there's some sort of interaction that happens with that thing. If you say, I believe in lightning, you know that lightning could strike, you don't want to go outside, you know what it does. But when people say just almost flippantly, sure, I believe in God, like you wonder if that's because they're brought up to say that, or anyway, that's just my feeling about that. That if you haven't had some experience with God, which is a process, that then saying I believe in God, well, what does really whenever a person tells me that, I just want to know what they mean. I want to know what I mean. What does it mean to have to believe in God?
Well, believing in God really doesn't mean much, to tell you the truth. You believe in the existence of God. You believe that there is a God. Like most people don't stop to think of it. I know people who say, I believe in God, but he's too busy to take care of me. He's busy with the world. I'm on my own. Most people look at it that way. But the only way you can truly trust God goes far beyond belief.
No, for sure. But I know that. But anyway, I just wonder what that means.
Well, you have to ask each one, because
I
it could
do.
mean something different for each.
I do.
Yeah.
Because, okay.
Yeah. Jerry, what do you think?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that today. I'm going to comment on something else.
Okay.
That people are familiar with the book, the Tanya.
The what?
T-A-N-Y. The Tanya.
Tanya, yes.
T-A-N-Y-A.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe your rabbi was familiar with that as well, because he's mentioning the Tanya does a big discussion on the two natures, which you brought up before. Maybe you heard that either you read the Tanya or you heard that from the rabbi as well. And it's talking about the evil nature and the good nature, and the fight between the two natures, and try to expand your good nature.
Right.
And the other thing that Tanya says, I believe it's the Tanya, that you should do a lesson 101 times. And that means, Peggy, you're talking about how often you have to read the Torah. So God willing, in good health and well, you should read it and be well 101 times minimum.
Amen. That means I have only another 70 odd years to live.
well, you'll be in coordination with the guys who just lived for hundreds of years over here. So why not? And
That's true.
but there's a catch to it. There's a stipulation to that. I should be with you to study that.
That's good. And I hope you are.
In good health, in good health.
In good health, exactly. But if you know, the Bible says if you trust God with all your heart, he will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So we have to learn, and that's our journey on this earth. Our journey is to learn our purpose in his plan for mankind. We all have a role to play, a small role, whatever it is. If we're blessed enough to find our calling, then we find fulfillment. We have a sense of purpose, and our lives are good in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the difficulties, because there is not one human being that doesn't struggle. Struggle is part of the duality of our nature. You know, when it talked to Jacob, wrestled with that angel, he struggled. That's a picture of Israel struggling with our God. We all do.
You know, at one time when I went to Maimonides to visit people, as you walk in the door, there's a statue of a man, and I think it was sculpted by a doctor, and it's called The Struggle.
Right.
And he's bending forward, something like the ballet with the swan. You know, the lady in the swan bends forward. It's also, and it's marked The Struggle.
Right. Right.
And I think I don't know. We cannot say what God Hashem wants us to do or not, but just guessing, I would imagine he would like us to solve or participate in the majority of our problems anyhow. Not that he should do everything for us, but we don't have to, but certainly guide us and help us, and whichever, but let us think that we are accomplishing things. Probably he's doing everything, but let us think that we are helping to do things as well.
Exactly. Well, he's given us a nature that allows us to do that. He wants us to be a light to all the nations. So he gives us the gifts. You know, we see that all through the Torah. He put his spirit in us. He gives us gifts and talents to use for the betterment of mankind, not to keep for ourselves. When we share, we receive. When it's in giving that we truly receive. And you don't really understand that until you start giving, because most people are too afraid. They're too afraid that they're going to lose something by giving. And you can never lose by giving, you gain it.
Well, giving and receiving it is the same. It's the it's the same unit. And
it's a full circle.
It's like you mentioned the rainbow. Sometimes we only see the arc of the circle, but you mentioned the entire it's a circle, but we can't always see the entire circle. And one thing I was happy to hear, because I tend to repeat myself very often. People have said, you're always repeating yourself. I'm not sure if you know that. And so I'm happy to hear tonight that you said that God repeats himself quite often. So I felt good for a while to say, well, I'm following what God does. I repeat myself. I'm going to use that perhaps in the future. I'm going to, they say you're always repeating yourself. I say, I'm only trying to follow God.
Good for you. That's exactly it. That's what he does, because he knows he knows how dumb we are, how slow we. You know, I remember my rabbi telling us a story about the donkey. When a donkey steps in a hole along the path, he will never again step in that same hole.
You mean, is this a true story?
This is a true story. A donkey will always remember that hole and never step in that same path. Well, we're exactly the same. We never make the same mistake once we've made it, right?
Nope.
You know, donkeys were smarter. They once wanted to use some creature to walk into the mines for soldiers, and originally they used donkeys, and the donkeys, when they came upon a mine, an explosion, so the donkeys refused to go, so they had to tell certain people to go, that to keep going. The donkeys were smart enough; they didn't keep going. It reminds me about that story that you just mentioned.
Which reminds me of the story of the prophet Bilam that we read. Remember, Bilam was a
Yes, right. That's something with the donkey. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and he was on a donkey, and the donkey started to speak to him, and he told him to stop because there was an angel with a flaming sword in front of him, which the human Bilam couldn't see, but the donkey saw it. So donkeys are very even more what's the word, discerning or stubborn than a horse, because if a rider could take a horse off a cliff, the horse will obey the rider, but a donkey won't go. The donkey will not.
My sister, on the second time she was doing the Camino, she did a few hundred miles, I guess, with a donkey, and some of them, were not so stubborn. She loved her donkey. She had two of them at different times, but one of them, she said, was very, very stubborn. Like you always hear, when it wanted to graze in the field, all of a sudden its head would go down, and she had to just wait because it would refuse to move.
Must have been a female.
I don't know. I don't think I think they were both males, but I'm not
I'm
sure.
just kidding.
I know. I know. You know what? I don't. Babool, I think.
Babool was the name?
Babool, I think.
That's funny. That's
a
cute.
French dog.
Yeah. Well, if there's nothing more that you have to add, I want to thank you for your participation in this study. Well, I can't say it's a study. I don't want to call it a study. I want to just read it and see how God's word speaks to each of us. And we don't have to get religious about it. We just have to read what it says. I mean, when it says he gave us everything to eat, and then but certain things were given as offerings. It's very different. Of course, we don't want to eat everything, probably because some things are so disgusting. But there's people who do eat everything. In Louisiana, they'll eat everything. They just put gravy on it. You go to certain countries, and you wouldn't want to touch. We as Jews wouldn't want to touch some of the things they put in their mouths. But who knows? Anyway, Jerry, do you want to finish with the prayer, the Aaronic benediction?
Okay. Right. Let me just find that spot here.
Okay.
May it be thy will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, that the blessing which thou hast commanded to pronounce upon the people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu bigdushasoi shel Aaron v'tzivonu levachech et amo Yisrael be'ahavo.
Amen.
Yevorechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Oev Adonai Pana Elecha V'chuneka Yisrael Adonai Pana Elecha V'yasem lecha shalom.
Amen.
Shamu et shemi al b'nei Yisrael v'ani arvorachem.
And we pray a special prayer for our nation of Israel. May our people be protected. Lord, shine your face upon them, bless them, keep them, help us find the hostages, Lord. Bring peace to the land, bring ahavat chinam to the land instead of sinat chinam. Heal our people, protect us, Lord. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you his shalom. So shall we put God's name upon all the children of Israel and the world, and God will bless us. Thank you again,
Amen,
Miriam.
amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Jerry.
It should be so.
And let it be so. Exactly. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. Keep our state of Israel in prayer and the poor people who are suffering, not only there, but around the world, all nations who are suffering, because we have to become a light to our nations. Have a good evening, and I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
You're welcome.